Are we on? Are we live? Did I fall asleep?
Oh man, I think we're gonna have a hard time today. I can tell my tech is not working for me today.
Finally, it's you, not me.
Yeah, it's a me problem today.
Finally, wake up and deliver is the name of the show, John. Not wake up and not succeed.
That's true. That's true.
Well, hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry we missed you last week. We had a few things that popped up that kind of stopped us from being able to do the show more on my part, but we're back. We're ready to go. Some of us are having technical difficulties. Need to fix our hairs. We need to fix our mics. Need to fix our technology, our lives.
Yeah, I'm gonna just like power through and like see if nobody notices my like tech issues today.
Oh, I know this. Just keep an eye on his lip sync and audio.
We've been chatting ahead of the show, so you don't count.
On that note, hello everybody. Good morning. Thanks for joining us for another Wake Up and Deliver. Again, we apologize we weren't able to join last week, but we're back. We're ready to go. And thank you for joining us. As always, this year we're starting off with a video. A lot of stuff has happened in the last 2 weeks, but nothing more crucial than I'm about to show you that happened when it comes to the logistics world. John, are you prepared for this?
I don't know. That was a big build-up.
I think you're ready.
More than 400,000 Kit Kat bars, but these weren't your normal candy. They were specially made, shaped like Formula One cars, and the whole load weighed over 12 tons. Nestle says the truck left a production site in central Italy and was headed across Europe to Poland despite the massive chocolate ice. The company says store supply won't be affected, but police are still searching for the truck and whoever took it.
So fraud is not just happening in North America. It's happened in Europe now too.
Yeah, I saw that story over the weekend, actually.
And that compares to the great heist of maple syrup many years ago in Canada. Did you remember that one?
Yeah, like it was a bunch of like the 60-gallon drums or something, wasn't it? Like it was all kinds of stuff that way.
It was a couple $1 million of maple syrup because it's that valuable.
Did you actually know, it's a random fact? I mean, like for our American friends who probably don't really care, but did you know that we actually have like a maple syrup reserve? Like there's a maple syrup like buffer inventory available.
This is going to blow your mind even more now. A fact upon a fact. Did you know that we had a maple syrup reserve, but we do not have an oil reserve?
Oh, wow.
So we don't have strategic oil reserves in Canada. So when the government a couple of weeks ago, when the whole shenanigans are ongoing that is happening, everybody part of the, I forget the association, they said, let's turn on our reserves and sell them back to the market to help alleviate the costs. Everybody has oil reserves except for Canada, which their way of counteracting this is just increasing production. That's the reserves. We're just going to increase our production.
Well, I mean, I guess if we have our own source, like, I mean, it's quasi fair, but I mean, I don't think our production speed is probably at the level that it would need to be to actually sustain daily operations, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what they were saying was, I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me past this, was like that we run at 30% of our overall capacity at any given time. So for us to reach our reserves that our people are asking of us, required us to go to like 45%, which isn't like a hard thing for the system to do. And that's the reason they don't. But it's been called into question of why Canada, being one of the largest oil, producers, doesn't just have a whole bunch on reserve. And was a hot topic.
Yeah,
hot take on Wake Up and Deliver.
Yeah, very, very hot, and you learn two good facts to start your Monday morning. So you're welcome this week.
Welcome.
You're welcome. All right, you got anything else, or do I get to serve you something up now?
Oof! I am ready. I am building up. I am ready to go. I'm gonna
You're ready for it, eh? Okay, so two interesting things that come up, and I think it's kind of an extension of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, obviously with the situation in Iran and the impact of costs. So you got two opposing type situations right now in the US. You got the USPS that just put through an 8% price increase, right? Which kind of makes it about 16% year over year if you've been leaning on USPS to do your shipping. But then at the same time, you have UPS that's catching so much flack from this buyout program where they were trying to, reduce drivers and trying to reduce their network size, that they have had to pull their buyout program for drivers that was offering up to $150,000 lump sum payment. So people think, well, why are those two things seemingly connected, or they're not connected? They're two different things. I think at the end of the day, they both speak to the fact that the cost of all of this activity going around is putting pressure all over the place. UPS was trying to take some action to lower their costs, and now they're not going to be able to. So what would that mean? And then you've got USPS that has been typically that ultra low cost, big national carrier forever, doing massive increases now over the course of the last 12 months. And all of that money makes it really difficult for retailers, whether big, small, or direct-to-consumer brands, to be able to kind of keep up, because the reality is that shipping margin, at best, you're building in the right kind of average into your sales when you're doing it now, so that you understand where and when you can offer free shipping, which most of you do. But what happens when you're going up? Because, if you pass along maybe a 10, 15, 20% price increase to your customers, that will immediately have a negative impact on your sales. People will notice and then will buy less frequently. So your revenue takes an immediate hit. So two very interesting things coming out, as the world continues to deal with a lot of challenges and the continued difficulty of more people ordering everything to home.
So part of that news was, and I'm trying to pull up the nice visual, was the $5 trillion in the market that was raced last week as well.
Oh, what, in oil or in metal?
In everything. Just the whole market lost 5 million because of the uncertainty of the marketplace.
Trillion.
5 trillion.
Yeah, you said million. No, trillion.
Trillion.
Trillion with a T.
Trillion. With
a T, like terrifying.
And on top of that, which is kind of cool, logistics news, and I won't find a visual in time, makes no difference. Elon Musk going IPO with his SpaceX, which should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. But on top of that, he's trying to get enough funding because he's trying to build a fuel supply, like a fuel station in space, to now keep continuing on to Mars. So that's kind of new logistics frontier that's going to happen, and that's one place. If someone called and knocked on my door, SpaceX went, "Hey Matt, come help us do some logistics," which I doubt. Like they don't need me, but if they did, I'd be a cool one.
Yeah, funny enough,
logistics in space would be damn cool.
I agree with you, buddy. And I've seen a few things over the years from Blue Origin. I've always been like, oh my God, I would love to, at least be doing something like that. It'd be so much different than a lot of the types of things that, you think about today, day to day, when you're thinking about supply chains and execution.
I mean, I know we're probably getting on topic that we wanted to, but the whole idea of like logistics is very fascinating. I remember when I was doing logistics overseas, when I was in Afghanistan doing military logistics, that like blew my mind every time. I loved it. It was like, how to properly load a plane, how to get certain, we got things on Chinooks, we got things on this, like the whole avenue of how to do the whole mechanism, everything at that grander scale was a lot of fun. And it's still a lot of fun. I think logistics, when you kind of break it down to it, is still a lot of fun. It's just a little bit different nowadays when you're not moving really cool things anymore, right?
Not moving cool things, and the reality is moving different things, right? I think the double-edged sword of logistics is that, like, a really well-run operation will be very tight, concise. You want to be able to repeat it because you need to have that backbone of your infrastructure, right?
Zero profile.
like, you end up like by doing a really great job, you essentially make things boring. Like,
True.
You know what I mean? Like that's the real difficulty with it. That's why all of us, like, sort of like supply chain logistics junkies, it's like the new projects, the new RFPs, the new this, the new that, because you're always kind of looking for something different and new to do. So that I feel you, because when you got it like running like a well-oiled machine, so to speak, it's kind of boring, and you miss some of the chaos of when it's not so well dialed in.
True. Very true. So what was the other thing you had, John, before we went off on that little tangent? You had some interesting.
So those were those two, which I thought was super interesting, right? So you got this challenge back in the US, and obviously there's been a lot of sort of like information, US, rest of the world, different information. But then, here's another thing when it comes to kind of commerce, when it comes to like manufacturing, when it comes to innovation, which are, a few different things you want to tag on this. China, for the 13th straight year, remains the world number one online market with 3.45 trillion with a T in total digital consumption last year. So they handled like the organizations, when you're thinking about logistics, when you're talking about well-oiled machines, when you're thinking about how people are looking to do things differently, they processed 199 billion parcels in 2025. And 95% of even their rural villages are now covered by delivery networks for regular and consistent delivery. So, everyone loves to look at the US and even some parts of Europe, for example, when they're looking at innovation and they're thinking about, real change when it comes to logistics, when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to whatever. And but China is really, China is by far like leading this kind of charge, and not just by a bit, by a long way. And a lot of people don't realize just how much different some of these networks are, which is why when you see these companies come from China or that are backed by China and they start doing logistics activity in the US or Canada, why they thrive is because they have a direct sort of link to these supply lines, and at the same time they've also learned and are using some of the best approaches for this ever developed. What did you just find?
The international like markets and the way they do things, like the e-commerce to the level that they are delivering to. Just wanted to kind of showcase it, because everybody, I don't know, I think everybody has a different assumption of what it looks like over there, and I think they have a misrepresentation, because everybody thinks. So even though I was looking at some factories, everybody thinks there's like thousands of people in their factories working away making these products. Most of the time, they're not. It's most of the time they're very advanced markets.
Oh yeah,
and giant e-commerce little cities like I'm showing you here, all over the place. And it's very industrialized. It's very high tech. It's very
well. They essentially doubled down on infrastructure like a long time ago.
Oh yeah, massive amounts into infrastructure. If you look at their rail system, how they've built it up, because they had almost nothing existent 30 years ago, and now I think they have one of the most rails systems in the world, the biggest infrastructure.
Well, and infrastructure in the sense of the roads, the capabilities, the buildings, the warehouses, the cross docks. Like there's a lot that goes into infrastructure. You know what I mean? That or a network's infrastructure, if you want to think about it that way. It's not just about I've got really great road access already from whatever has been there before, right? So that's kind of interesting. And then to continue this concept of like the difference between the worlds, so to speak, right? And like where everyone's going. So you're showing even more here, which is like super cool. Like, you know what I mean? And like, clean, crisp, like just connected, effective use of data, information sharing, you know what I mean? Platforms.
I want to see the one part of the video got me here. Hold on. Where is it? You can keep talking. Sorry, I'm gonna just. I think it's coming up.
Well, I don't want to confuse people with my next one because it's not 100% China per se. Similar idea though.
So the rail network was like, where was it? 2008. It was like non-existent at all, and now
just everywhere.
Just everywhere.
Yeah, and high-speed trains too.
Yeah. So when I was reading that, even the statistic is it's cheaper and quicker for people to travel within China by rail than it is by plane. After you take the time to drop off your car, do all those things, they can get across with the high-speed rail all across China, and people are just like, "What? Why bother in a plane?" And that way, you don't burn as much oil. You can. It's all electric grid, and they've converted to for the green energy. You know, when Americans are saying, "Hey, it's not worth it," they did it, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah, I would agree with you that like for a lot of stuff, if you go, if you're able to go fast enough, like I mean, the airport's tough, like for how much time it takes before, after, whatever. So I don't disagree that like the investment I think is paying off, right? Amazon did something similar essentially just by building their own network infrastructure in the US, and you're seeing what it gives them today versus everybody else. My last touch on the the tale of two cities, these two worlds between the US and kind of Asia, was Coupang, who also made a big headline with NVIDIA last week, where they're partnering with them to build, what are they calling it, an AI factory for logistics, which is using agentic AI to automate the reasoning for bin packing, inventory placement, and routing. So they're basically looking to be able to leave their buildings like more chaotic in the Amazon sense, but highly structured, because the thing is and this is what I kind of love about the idea, is that, and we've talked about this before, what happens when you get away from designing a system that is essentially built for a person's limitation, versus like a system's limitation, right? Like, the computer doesn't really have as much of an issue with the chaos, with the it doesn't look pretty enough, it doesn't do this. It's all about pure efficiency, right? Like if putting it here makes the most sense, I'll remember that it's there, it's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
There's not as much of a need to develop things for that human condition, so to speak. So it's interesting to see them where they're going to do this. They're spending a ton of money on it, like almost $2 billion through the next year, and they're thinking of having almost 20 billion poured into this thing by 2035. So they're really moving away from like what they're calling obviously predictive AI, which is kind of just guessing or suggestions, into the sense of agentic AI, which is actually executing and like quote unquote making decisions and getting things done in the moment. So my point with this, and I've shared this with you like 100 times, is and for people out there as well, is that like this consolidation and this tech going out with these big firms, like it's all coming and it's all there. Like to think that this isn't happening and to think that you can continue the way that your business has always operated is a real fallacy.
Oh, it's going to be worse as you realize simple things have already changed. What I mean by that is AI, not that we're always talking about AI, but we're always talking about AI because it's so interesting. But all the new hardware. Try buying a brand new PC with a brand new video card this year. There's no more products made by NVIDIA anymore because all their money, because it's just not worth it for them. They rather sell all their parts to AI. Same with cell phones. They're going to have a hard time getting a new cell phone for the price, not because of even what's going on in the world, but because AI is taking up all the chips and all the RAM. You can't even buy RAM right now for your computer. All this tech that you've had is not going to be accelerating for the personal use as quickly for you and I anymore, John. It's going to be accelerating for the AI so much more because it's eating it up for that efficiency that you just talked about that we just cannot meet because we're using it to scroll TikTok. So we're not generating the same value for that scroll as an AI would building and eliminating things, right? So I find that very interesting as well, how that whole system is changing. So I'm curious what our tech, if it's going to finally kind of stop being a progression like this for our technology, for our personal use, and kind of start plateauing out, and how that's a lot of the supply chains.
But that's where I think, on the supply chain side, there's a few things that are still really missing. Like, if you're thinking more up the chain in supply chain, there's still so much opportunity for, vendor buyer negotiations, for, documents, for purchase orders, for all of this kind of planning and purchasing. Like, this is still a huge opportunity. When you're thinking about the more logistics side, warehousing, transportation, delivery, like, there's still so many different ways that people do everything. And I think that the smaller businesses are going to have a hard time keeping up, because more and more things are going to get into, you need to have a system to be able to do this transaction very quickly, to upload the data, to be able to parse my messy data into whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're getting to a world where, like, people's expectation, because they know the tools are out there, it's just going to be like, hey, I expect this to get done. And, if you're not investing in it and you're just trying to hope that relationships and, just doing the job properly or doing what you say is going to be enough. I honestly don't think it will, because it's not enough of it. It won't be enough of a differentiator, or I don't know if it'll be enough of a differentiator to offset any kind of friction in the transaction.
My prediction, and we can mark it down on March 30th, 2026, is as in the past, where if you didn't have a Google review or a Google account, your business just didn't thrive. Soon enough, if you don't have an agent to do a lot of your connection with another person's agent to validate your business and what differentiates you, and when that person's looking for it, you're going to be in the dust. So if you're not building that kind of agent model right now in your business, whether it's a retail or service or anything like that, it's going to take over the Googleness of how to find the proper person to do business with. It's going to be who has the better agent model that connects to their system and is able to evaluate that back to another agent who's doing an RFI through an agent to agent model. And I think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen within this year or next year. I think it's going to take a couple of years, but that will be the new RFI way of doing business, where it's going to connect to you. The agent's going to ask your agent a whole bunch of questions. It's going to look through your system, and there's no more bullshitting it. Whether you have the capabilities or not, are just going to be there. It's going to say, yeah, you meet our criteria. You may enter to the next phase for us.
Well, or even think about something as simple as like onboarding a new vendor. There's not going to be one to like fill out this form, fill out that form, do this, do that. It's going to be like, to your point, like, let's get these two systems connected. They can work it out, whatever. And, we'll have you set up in our system, or we'll be set up in yours, or whatever it is.
Yeah, the days have gone where a basement broker, and it was going to go away, where he says, yeah, I can handle 100,000 shipments. I already do that every day. The system is going to evaluate that quite quickly and be like, no, you only handle maybe 1,000 a year. You don't have density in this market that you say you do. We're not putting our business at risk. We're going to go with these guys instead. Or we're able to do 70 different partners now, because we can handle all that information.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter anymore. Like, you don't need to have a very dense localization of partners. You can have multiple, even small mom and pop shops at that point as your partners, because they're very good at delivering, Toronto to New York City. And that is the lane they do, and they do it the most effectively and cheaply. And that you're able to connect to them, and it's going to be very seamless for you to do business with them. And that's the key thing between that agent to agent model. I think that's going to differentiate business in the future. I called it. We'll let it be known on the internet when the Google gods go through and read this transcript in 10 years. Maybe they'll put me on CNN then.
So, okay, let's do maybe one more question here to wrap up, to start the week. What is your take, or what do you think people should do when it comes to, or how do you think it should be handled when you have situations like this where external events dramatically impact your cost base? And I say in the sense of the Iran conflict right now driving up oil prices, but because it's driving up oil prices, everything from the first mile transportation to running factories to lubing machines to the cost of plastic, like everything is going up. So like, what do you just start to do from a contract perspective? Like, do you just start raising your rates? Do you try to let it eat your margins because you know that like everyone's going to be pushing back? Like, what would you start advising people of doing?
It's a good question. Great question, actually. I struggled with this in the last little bit because I had a lot of my partners come back to me and they're like, "Man, I can't do this for this rate anymore. The price of fuel has doubled." I'm like, "Okay, I'm here. I'm listening. I don't want to leave you out in the dust." And it's usually line haul plus fuel. So I said fuel went up and it doubled, but the overall cost didn't double, right? And I'm struggling with that where someone, for simple mathematics, we went Toronto to Montreal, used to be $1,000 for math's sakes. Now they're asking for $2,000. Like your overall cost of that run wasn't 100% fuel. Mm-hmm. You didn't double your costs on that. So part of that struggle has been talking to your vendors and your contractors is break it down for me. Is this a cash grab or is this legitimately your increase that you're having? And part of it is a lot of these guys don't know. They just know they feel it and they're panicking and they're adjusting as much as they can and they're getting whatever they can get. Because for the longest time, they weren't getting anything. And that's not to say that their fuel cost hasn't doubled. Like if you're running a lot of long haul going to California, where it used to cost you, a couple grand, now it's, you're looking at your bill every month, you're going, holy, I'm burning way more, obviously. You do need to increase it. And then I had customers come back to me going, we've compensated you with the fuel increase. Like we have a fuel program in place and it's gone up. Why are your prices creeping upward? Because it's not just the fuel, like you said, there's an overall market increase, right? So what I try to explain to the customers is, hey, yes, the fuel has gone up, but the price of that driver to do that work now has increased as well. With the fuel going up, his cost for everything that he does and eats and does along the way and everything that is in his system have increased as well. So his overall costs have gone up slightly, marginally up. So all this pressure is building up. And also there's a lot less capacity in the market because of everything else that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks is happening as well. So it's not just that particular one. So, a year ago, we had a lot of capacity. We had a lot of great partners. Out of all those great partners, some of them have lost their businesses, unfortunately, with everything that's been going on. And that's part of the conversation too, Mr. Customer, that it's not just this microism of fuel, but it's a whole systematic issue that we're having, right? And that is part of the reason that there are these increases. And they kind of understand them. Some of them are like, well, no, this is not fair. I'll remember this when the cycle kind of turns back the other way and then you want partnerships. And I'm like, hey, listen, I can only do what I can. I'm not going to do it at a negative because it doesn't make sense to keep doing business for free, right? You always got to protect your own business. You're in the business to make money, not to make your customer feel good, right? And if your customer doesn't understand, well, I'm just like, if your customer doesn't understand that your overall costs have gone up and they're not willing to help you, sometimes they might not be the right customer to do business with you. Because there's a lot of other customers that we're doing business with that are like, listen, we understand that what's happening in the marketplace, make sure our service never is affected.
Yeah, I think that like anything, the reality is, I think when every business or any business feels that kind of pressure, the reality is there's certain businesses that are better positioned to be able to either weather it or respond to it in the sense of like they can get away with price increases or their margins are so big that they can kind of deal with it. But I also think there's a lot of businesses that have their success built on some pretty fine lines. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like it's a bad business. It's just that, for certain industries or for certain types of products, the margins are rough. And like, you don't necessarily win by the quality of a transaction. You maybe win by the volume, right? Or something like that. And if you don't have that ability to charge more money, you can get into it. So funny enough, I had a comment for someone and I said that what an opportunity it would be for someone to finally kind of shake some of this fuel surcharge nonsense and the way that it's typically applied. More so for smaller delivery networks that came up in that context, that was like looking for like, hey, how should you protect yourself against these kind of fuel increases? I'm like, for the way that you guys operate, like your fuel should be really your fuel. And, you should easily be able to show that customer that, hey, like, the mileage is X, and stayed the same. And it really just goes from, this price per liter per gallon to this price per liter or gallon, and just really charge on that. The problem with too many carriers these days is that fuel surcharge is related to fuel in some ways, but it's also a massive profit driver because it's just nonsense the way that it's applied. But like
it is a hidden way of hedging their margin, right? They're going to go, here is my line haul including fuel, and that's what I'm going to guess what it is, and the plus fuel is what I'm going to make on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what I'm hoping that it's going to be. Right. And it's just pretty much the same thing. And then they're hedging against it, and they're hoping when the fuel goes up, obviously the margin goes up because of fuel and everything like that. Mm-hmm. It does happen. It works for a lot of the bigger guys. Right.
For sure. Exactly. So anyways, a little bit, we're running a little bit long, but that's a bit of some food for thought for you guys out there who are running your businesses and stuff like that. Everything is relative, and really understanding like where you can push, where you can't. I do think that, to Matt's comments there, is that if you are in a position to weather the storm a little bit for yourselves, it can be an opportunity to sort of ingratiate yourself with different customers, or to try to build your business with certain customers if everybody else is creating more, well, I should say a less ideal partnership for them at the moment. That said, though, never any guarantees. So the one thing that I also always advise people is to never overestimate the quote unquote return you'll get for said good deed or for some good partnership. Because I find too many people over index on, oh, well, I was there for them when, so they'll be there for me. And unfortunately, it's not that one-to-one as much as maybe we'd all like it to be.
Especially if you're not having conversations. I think one of the biggest things that people forget to do is have that conversation.
Exactly.
And I'm just to kind of end that thought is, like, it's one thing to you're weathering it, like John said. But if you're not talking about it with your customer, be like, hey, I don't want to impact your business. This is exactly what I'm doing to keep it. Please, when you can, when the market is favorable, keep me in mind, or let's put something in place now so I can make up for it. And then we can work in that position. Because you thinking that they know that you're weathering it is a fallacy. And I think without you highlighting your abilities to what you're doing to your customer is doing yourself detriment.
Yeah, I think they're usually a good time not to do it in a ransomy way of like sign a contract and I'll keep your stuff. But I do agree with you that I think it's typically a good time to try to go up and say, hey, listen, like, I'm happy to invest in you. Are you willing to invest in me?
Exactly. That's a great way.
I think it's a great way to potentially take advantage of a challenging market.
And on that note, you guys
3 minutes, 3:30, 3:33.
we're over. But on that note, great show as always. At least we think so. We love our own
always,
show.
Yeah, it's always the best. I mean, everybody.
We're always the best. We're just winners on this show here. We're just winners. on that note, we'll catch everybody next week. Have fun. Have a great week. Cheers.